Hello and welcome to an episode of the Bearded Mystic Reacts. Today we will be reacting to the Ranveer Show, or Beerbiceps as he's known by, and what we will be doing is looking at his specific video that he interviews Gaur Gopal Dasji, who's a monk who will explain the Bhagavad Gita in 7 minutes. So let's get started.
Have you read the Bhagavad Gita?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I was expecting him to say yes. If he said anything else, I would be rather surprised. So glad that he said yes to that rather silly question. The reason why I think it's a silly question and kind of is ignorant in a way is because Gaur Gopal Dasji is well known to be a monk of iskcon, and iskcon monks are definitely well versed in the Gita. Philosophically, they differ with the way we view things on the podcast, but respect to all the monks, they do know the Gita that Srila Prabhupada kind of translated and interpreted. So yeah, let's continue.
Like, what's in that book? Why do people say that you open any page of it and you'll get your answer? Why do people say things like that?
Well, we all know why people will say things like that, but it's a good question. A lot of people say you will get all the answers to your questions.
Sure. I think the first thing to know is let's remove the religion aspect from the Bhagavad Gita totally. Bhagavad Gita is not a religious book.
I don't know how I feel about that. The Bhagavad Gita is a religious book. It is a spiritual text. It has specific religious and spiritual terms that you should know. The fact that he says this, you ignore the whole factor of Sri Krishna talking about the Tattvadarshi. Why would he mention stuff like this? This is not for a materialist point of view or for a secular point of view. The issue that I have with a lot of, I think Gaur Gopal Dasji is one of those where they're mainly motivational speakers, and they've kind of interpreted the Bhagavad Gita to suit their needs. It's not there to suit my needs or your needs. It's there to support us in our spiritual growth. The Bhagavad Gita is a spiritual text, is a religious book, and most of all it's there for our liberation, to be free from the clutches of our body and mind, from Maya, from the wrong identification that we have. And it's about allowing us to understand that we are this Brahman, this vast ultimate reality, pure consciousness, pure awareness.
It is a book which gives you the way to live.
I agree with that.
And the setting for the Bhagavad Gita is the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Mahabharata, where Arjun's confused, right? And Krishna becomes his mentor and gives him guidance in a way that he can now start doing what is meant to do right. So every young man or lady is going to have confusions. Every young person is going to have those dilemmas, to do or not to do, to be or not to be. That's exactly how the Gita begins. It begins with confusion, it begins with dilemmas, it begins with a lack of meaning. Right?
The only thing I will say, Sri Krishna is a mentor. Sri Krishna is Arjun's guru. We know this because Arjun does ask Sri Krishna to be his guru. So the fact that he says mentor is not the right word for what Sri Krishna is. It's rather limiting Krishna in a huge way. And I don't know how iskcon would allow such an interpretation. But I guess with his words, the positive is that it does reach to a wider audience. And I can see the purpose of that. There's positives and negatives to it. Arjun is confused, is in dilemma, and this is something we can relate to. The reason why I think Arjun is really special and hasn't got given his due is because even though, yes, he asked questions, but those questions were brilliant. And those confusions and dilemmas, he had the audacity to present them to his guru. The amount of people, personally, would I want my guru to think I have all these doubts and dilemmas and confusions? Probably not. And I'll be honest about it. I think a lot of us would prefer not to voice them. So I say Arjun is very courageous, and despite having that confusion, he's also courageous. But yeah, absolutely right. The only thing I disagree with was the mentor aspect of it. Yeah.
And then Krishna kind of guides Arjun through and empowers Arjun to make his own choices. Krishna only acts as a facilitator, right? And empowers Arjuna to understand that he is way too more powerful than the people he's going to face in the battle.
That's really nice way of looking at it. Sri Krishna is empowering Arjun, and not a facilitator so much. Again, that's a lot of corporate speak. But what Sri Krishna is really doing is actually not even presenting choices. He's not giving Arjun a choice. If you've read the Gita, you know Arjun's not given the choice. He's told that he has to fight in the battle. So the choice really isn't there. It's all determined about what's going to happen. So Arjun has to go with whatever has been presented to him as an apparent choice.
Every young man and lady needs to understand that they are way more powerful than what they are going through at the moment. Their confusions are smaller than them. Their challenges are smaller than them. Their problems are smaller than them. Their heartbreaks, as painful as they are, but are still smaller than them, and they have the capacity to overcome that, those pains that they're going through. So I think that's precisely where books like the Gita help a lot, because they build in you that sense of confidence.
Books like the Gita, again, I just find it a bit corporate-y. I think that's what I don't like about this so far, although I like some elements of it. But the other thing he does say is, and I agree, our problems aren't as big as the awareness that we have. That awareness should engulf our problems. And that's the awareness that Sri Krishna talks about in the Gita, the Sakshi, the Purusha. We are not Prakriti. That's not our true roop. That is not our true form. Gaur Gopal Dasji, I've not really read his stuff or listened to him. I see him a lot on social media, but I'm personally not interested in things that he says. But in this, I feel like he's not presenting his knowledge maybe as much, but is understanding the audience more. That's where I am kind of cool with this, and not so irritated as I would normally be.
And strength,
fortitude, that I have the power as a spiritual being to overcome everything that's going on in my life, and I have the power to be able to make the difference and that impact, because I am a spiritual being.
Can you reference like 3 big lessons from the Bhagavad Gita that stayed with you specifically?
Yes. One of the lessons that stayed with me from the Gita is a particular text from the 2nd chapter of the Gita, which talks about the summer and the winter season, right? And this particular text says that the summer and the winter season keeps coming and going every year. Seasons change. And just because the seasons change, we never stop performing our duties. Let's say, for example, it's Chicago and the temperatures are minus 27 degrees Celsius. People don't stop their work still. Let's say it's Delhi, it's 43 degrees Celsius. People are still on and going on with their regular life with a few adjustments here and there, obviously. So this text of the Gita, chapter 2, tells us that we have to learn to tolerate the ups and downs and not be distracted from what our main purpose is. Like when we talk about tolerating failures and pains, we can understand. But we also have to learn to tolerate our success and the good times, because both distract us. You know, usually we only look at the negatives as distractions, but even the positives distract us from what we are meant to be doing. So that's something that really kind of stayed with me. The second,
very interesting. I kind of like what he said about we need to tolerate success as well as failure, the positives as well as negative, having that sameness of vision that Sri Krishna talks about, especially in the chapter 2. But what's missing there is how Sri Krishna gets us to that understanding. What Sri Krishna tells us is that we need to be able to remain in awareness and understand that we are the Atma, we are not the body and mind. And therefore, when we understand who we are, we then understand how we can deal with the changing phenomena, because we are changeless. We are actually changeless beings. Or we are that one changeless being that has come into this limited structure. And in that limited structure, we are to perform our duties in life. So Sri Krishna talks about that, and what Gaur Gopal Dasji gives is the result of that, which is true. We have that forbearance, that strength, that fortitude, that attitude to deal with life in a more positive sense, with more strength and more courage and more empowerment. And the biggest thing we find in life is that we can't tolerate anything outside of our comfort zone, especially in today's day and age. For example, we can't tolerate extreme heat, we can't tolerate extreme cold. The things that would make us strong, we don't put ourselves through. So he's absolutely right. I mean, living in our comfort zones will not help us. And spirituality is not about being in your comfort zone. Spirituality doesn't allow you to be settled. And like in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna disturbs Arjun, and likewise our Guru also disturbs us in a sense, so we can get out of our comfort zone. Not disturb us in a bad way where the Guru takes advantage of us. Not in that sense, in the sense of Sri Krishna, where it's to empower us to go beyond our comfort zone, to go beyond what we would normally do.
Second thing that I really kind of resonate with in the Gita is a verse from the 6th chapter which talks about the mind being a friend or an enemy to you. It depends on how you deal with the mind.
Okay.
Right? If you befriend your mind, the mind will become your friend and will empower you to do what you want to do. But if you don't deal with it rightly, then the mind will become your enemy and will lead to your downfall. I'll give you an example. You want to get up early in the morning to go for a jog or for a workout because you know you want to be fit. You know your days are busy. And you decide this is going to be my plan for the year 2020. Correct? You set up the alarm clock to wake up early in the morning, like 5, 6, whatever. And when the alarm goes, what's the mind saying? The first thing, you slept late last night, take it easy. Or maybe this is not the right thing for you to do. The mind's constantly playing games, right? Now, if you have a mind which is constantly giving these kind of reasons, you're not going to wake up. Right? On the other hand, if you learn to train your mind using the proper intellectual process, right, proper spiritual process, your mind can be your greatest asset and your friend.
Which is meditation, good books.
Meditation, books, right?
Correct friends.
Correct friends, the right kind of company. All of these are inputs so that your mind kind of becomes a friend.
I would love if he gave the specific verses, but that's a minor point. But what I really love what he says is that, yeah, your mind should be your friend, and we don't have to make the mind an enemy. Our thoughts can help us. How can we transform our thoughts? By reading good books, being in the right satsang, being in the right company. That means, taking the company of those people that will inspire us to be greater spiritual beings, to have greater spiritual understanding.
Gita that connects to me a lot is how do we start looking at the presence of divinity everywhere, in every aspect. We don't have to necessarily go to a place of worship to look at the presence of divinity. You can look at the presence of divinity in nature. You can look at the presence of divinity in other people. You can start looking at the splendor of the creator or the creation. Or you can start looking at the splendor of the creator in the creation. Which is precisely why this is something that I usually tell people is when you look at somebody who's better than you, and especially if they are in the same field, usually there is insecurity. There's insecurity that this guy is doing better than me in what I am doing. Or there is envy, jealousy. Sometimes it goes to the extent of sabotaging that other person's work as well. And it has happened in the world. It happens all the time. So when you start looking at divinity in creation, you start looking at how divinity has empowered somebody to do something in a special way. That person has been gifted by higher powers, right? And to sabotage that person's work, or to be envious about that person, or to feel insecure, means actually insulting somebody who's given that gift to him. You know? But if I look at that person and derive inspiration from that person, I can seek that inspiration to follow my aspiration. You know? So that aspect of the Gita also kind of really resonates with me, that you start looking at divinity everywhere and in every place around you, including people who are doing better, because it's not them. You can see straight away. Very often I see people who do remarkable stuff, and they usually, when they speak, they say it's they doing it, and of course they're doing it. No doubt that there's a part that they're doing, but you can tell that there's something beyond them that's kind of making them do it. Whether it's acting, speaking, singing, something. There's an element which is not necessarily effort, not their effort. You know?
X factor.
X factor. And when you start appreciating that X factor as divinity, that's something that really kind of connects to me as well.
Interesting way to end it. I thought they'd conclude it a little bit. They didn't. The third point also very interesting. I don't know who would be envious of people who are successful. I guess either Ranveer or Beerbiceps, he's a fan of LeBron James. It's pretty obvious. But seeing divinity in everywhere, in every place is good. What I would say is there is only divinity. Therefore, it doesn't matter what is everywhere and everything. It's just divinity. And therefore, when you see with that, you have the sameness of vision, the oneness of vision. So I wouldn't say it explains the Bhagavad Gita in 7 minutes. I kind of think that's a misleading title. But it definitely gives a good understanding, an interesting understanding for somebody who would come across the Gita for the first time, maybe. For someone who is kind of progressed a little, read the Gita a few times, has a good understanding, a decent understanding, I don't think this video does justice to the Gita at all. But for someone, as an introduction, is quite good. Appreciating people's talents is important. If I had to quickly sum up what the Bhagavad Gita is to me, it's a text that starts with assessing what our mind really is. The mind is confused, wrongly identified with the body and the senses. It does not understand how limited it is. It's created an identification from the relationships it has with the world. And then comes along a guru who tells you that in this battlefield of life, everything around you is subject to death and decay, to change. But the true aspect of you is beyond change. And therefore, you need to realize what that changeless one is. Become aware of that changeless one and remain in the awareness of that changeless one. Understand that this body has to go through what nature intends for it to do. However, you are that changeless that can observe everything and remain in the observer. With that, you can find your own path towards that divinity and utilize many different paths. The 4 that I mentioned is obviously your understanding intellectually what Brahman is and what you are truly. Then having Bhakti Yoga, having devotion towards that higher power within you, that higher sense of self that's there, present within you, and discovering that and being devoted to it. But if we find that difficult, then having someone, an Ishtevta or a guru or God, as someone that we can worship until we see that same divinity within us. And then Raj Yoga, having that focus and that attention, to have that one-pointed focus towards something. And in my opinion, that should be our own inner changeless aspect. And then Karma Yoga, in whatever action we do in life, that one is done with the vision that it will help many people, and 2, it's a path of least harm, and 3, we are serving the divine that is manifest in this world, and that divinity that's manifest in the world, that's manifest in us, is just one. And what the Bhagavad Gita does, what Sri Krishna does, is take us from a being that is limited to the limitless, that has a form to the formless, that is subject to the senses, to the awareness of all that is. So yeah, I don't know how many minutes that took. Let me know what you thought of mine. If you have any videos that you want me to react to, please write it down in the comments or contact me and send me a link to that video. Do you like this video? Do comment on what you think about this video, what you thought about the video that we reacted to. And please do subscribe if you haven't. And see you next time. Thank you. Bye.